Hello everyone, and welcome to this video on iWeb. As some of you already know, iWeb was Apple's very own web page designer. Now, despite the fact that I missed this software about 5 years or so, I'm still going to do a video on it. The goal of this video is to make a small little sort of memorial for the app. In this video, we will be covering where the app came from, its introduction, its lifespan, its discontinuation, and if iWeb could really serve a purpose in 2025. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our channel members since they're the backers of the channel. I think we should definitely take a minute or two to talk about web designer software. Now, everyone has heard of these if you've been on YouTube in the past like a decade. These are Wix, Squarespace, WordPress. These are all the big and popular ones today, and they sponsor a lot of YouTube channels. Web designers make it much easier to design a web page with a lot of drag and drop features. Now, on the other hand, you could also try to code in HTML. Now, coding in HTML for designing a website is often super confusing and really annoying for beginners trying to design their own from scratch. And these web designer tools that I mentioned earlier, such as Wix, Squarespace, and WordPress, make this process much easier than manually typing in HTML code. Here's an example of a website I designed before. Now, I figured out how to do this only after learning HTML for about an hour or two. And what I did is I ported a Commodore 64 text adventure I made into HTML so anybody with the files could play it. If you guys would like to see more of this, let me know since I'd love to talk about it. For most people, using the web designer type of software will make creating their vision much simpler. Fitting in what Apple tended to do back in the day, iWeb made the process of creating your own vision much easier. Before we get into the origins of the app, I did find this official web page from Apple that was advertising iWeb 09, which I think is very cool. Although mentioning iWeb 09 may have turned on a light bulb in a few of your heads. It may sound pretty familiar to iMovie 09, as we talked about in our iMovie video, and you may have also connected that 09 to iLife 09, but we're not going to start at iLife 09. The start of iWeb goes back to iLife 2006. My original idea in the script, I was going to write about whom I could pin this software on, but after further proofreading the script, this was essentially useless. The truth is, this was a collaborative project within Apple. iWeb was more like an Apple III when it came to who designed and engineered it. There was a ton of people. This isn't saying that iWeb was a disaster. It was just built fundamentally different than that of Stickies or the Apple II. Stickies, which we've covered on the channel before, and the Apple II, which we have yet to cover. Now, these two products were designed largely by Jens Alf and Steve Wozniak, respectively. So what I'm saying is, this software was a very collaborative effort that spanned influence from many cores of Apple. As for execution, Apple released a new software at the Macworld conference in 2006 with the 2006 release of iLife. We've talked about iLife before on the channel, but for those who haven't seen my other episodes, iLife was a suite of applications that Apple sold, which contained apps to make your life easier, such as iMovie, GarageBand, iPhoto, and etc. These were apps that made the process of showing off your life much simpler and easier. iWeb was a great addition to iLife's collection of software. A web designer fits in very well next to iMovie and GarageBand. iLife 06 was already a much bigger release compared to the last few years of iLife. For example, iPhoto was made much faster, with a new limit of 250,000 photos, full screen editing, and one-click effects. This was a great addition to the app, making it like a super low-budget Lightroom. But there's one more thing. Templates for photos were also announced, and these could be calendars with your family on them, to wedding photos, to anything you could really imagine, or anything that Steve Jobs really wanted you to imagine. After reading about iPhoto, I naturally had to try out the Photos app on my desktop that I have ignored, and sadly the Photos app found today on Mac OS and iOS devices is clearly not the same. It can, however, do the same thing that I would probably use it for, which would be editing the colors in a photo. Photocasting was also introduced, which was like a podcast for photos. That's actually how Jobs described it. This made it so anybody could subscribe to an album of photos, and everybody subscribed could use those photos. Now you're probably wondering, why am I even talking about photos in a video about iWeb? Well, this is because I wanted to bring up photocasting, which used the .Mac service, which was the predecessor to MoblieMe, which was also a predecessor to the iCloud. MoblieMe and .Mac did play a major role in iWeb when it came to publishing websites, but we'll touch on this later on. The last app shown and introduced, the one you're all waiting for, was iWeb. iWeb was advertised as a simple-to-use tool capable of creating beautiful websites with ease. The use of this app is amazing as well. Users could upload their own photos and podcasts. Viewers of the websites could also subscribe to the creator's RSS feed. Apple services like .Mac and MoblieMe could even host a website for you. Steve Jobs did an amazing job of demoing this software.
It's all done automatically for you, and when you're done creating a website, you push one button and it's automatically uploaded to .Mac and published on .Mac, so that anybody with any browser on any computer can just look at your website. And this is what it would look like. They go to your photo page, this is what it would look like. And if they have a modern browser, we've got this great photo viewer that uses some Ajax technology. Lets you go forward and previous and actually scroll between your slides. So it works great in IE, obviously works great in Safari, Firefox, etc. If you subscribe to these things, any RSS reader, subscribe to your blog, and on your podcast, if somebody says subscribe, boom, iTunes on Mac or Windows will subscribe to that podcast. It's that simple. And so I'd like to show you, let's go ahead and build a website. Launch iWeb, it's right here. And we're going to go ahead and pick modern here, and we'll pick About Me. I'm going to bring up the media browser here. And I got my beach trip photos. And I think we'll just go ahead and put Allie there, and maybe we'll get rid of this. And what we'll do is we will go ahead and bring up the inspector. We'll just turn reflections on. See how that reflection turned on there? And maybe we'll put her name here. Allie Keene. Much of it. Maybe we just want, maybe that much of it. And maybe we want to rotate it a little bit. Make it a little bigger. And, we can drop some other photos in here. Whatever we'd like. And I can go get some music if I want to. And let's say I get my favorites right here, and I just drop this playlist right over Photos page. And I'm just going to drag these beach photos in here. And boom, there's all my photos. And again, I can move them around and put them in any order I want to. And there's my photos. And I'm going to change the one up here. Maybe I'll put this up here. And maybe change this, my photos. And the other thing I want to do is I want to just drag this photo album right up on top here. And this is another way that people are going to find out about photocasting, because in addition to just watching the slideshow, they can actually subscribe to this photocast now just by hitting this button. So there's my photos. And now I'm going to make a blog. And so I'm going to go pick a blog page. And I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be day 1, and maybe it's cycling. And I'm going to just change the photo right here, and I'm going to add another entry, day 2, maybe hiking, and just drop another photo in there, and maybe another entry, day 3, surfing, and I'll add another one. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and create a podcast page. And I'm going to go back to audio here, and let's see now. I've got a podcast that somebody made that I can just drop right in.
Well, hi everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn to Surf podcast.
And so this is called Learn to Surf. And that's kind of cool. To the share menu, and all I have to do is say send podcast to iWeb, and boom, it's going to go ahead and mix down this podcast, put it in all the right formats, package up the artwork and everything it needs to do, and send it on over to iWeb, and iWeb's going to say, do you want to put it in a blog or a podcast? I want to put it in a podcast. And boom, there we go. I've got my podcast right here, and there it is. Hi, I'm Steve, and welcome to my weekly. So now, and it's going to upload it. It's going to generate all the HTML and the RSS feeds and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm going to put this over to the side, and I'm using Safari now, but I could use any browser. Again, you know, I can just pick one of these songs. I have no idea which one. But boom, I'm in iTunes, and
for the average person, iWeb was the best way that they could get into web design in 2006. This has the perfect number of features for most people. I brought up .Mac and MoblieMe a few times, and I think I should explain what .Mac and MoblieMe were briefly. .Mac and MoblieMe were essentially Apple's online services before iCloud. It had email support, online storage, backup, and sync services. So why did they abandon this? I'll be brief since I'd like to do a separate video on this topic, but by the time computing was starting to go more mobile, .Mac just could not hold up in comparison to its competitors. Apple tried to fix this with MoblieMe, but it was built off of .Mac largely, and it actually ended up being very subpar and very buggy, especially for Apple's standards. Apple's cloud-based services were eventually replaced by iCloud 2011, leaving iWeb behind without iCloud support. Funny enough, I couldn't actually find an official statement from Apple about discontinuing the app, which I thought was very interesting. So whilst it wasn't officially discontinued even today, its functionality was essentially finished. The closest thing Apple released to a shutdown statement was telling its users that the websites hosted over MoblieMe will not be hosted on iCloud. Without MoblieMe, a lot of the functionality of the software was gone in terms of sharing and publishing. I'd love to demo the software myself, but I'm in this weird situation where all the Macs in my house are either too old or too new to run this. All the working Macs we have run on Apple Silicon, which is not the main issue, but since Catalina dropped 32-bit support in 2019, I would be unable to run this app on today's macOS Sequoia. The iMacs we have that would be perfect to run the software have had their hard drives fail, or they take a painfully long time to boot up and do anything. We do, however, have a G4 iMac, and last I checked, which was about 2 to 3 years ago, the drive worked. The issue is I don't really have a good way to get the software onto the device. The airport card, Apple's wireless card at the time, is either missing or malfunctioning from what I remember, and it's become a beautiful paperweight. Now, don't get your hopes down. Computer Clan has a great video demoing the software, so please check their video out. I'll link it in the description. As for the life and times of iWeb, in the 5 years it was around, it seems like there really wasn't much going on. Trying to find changelogs for the app was very difficult. The Apple Wiki didn't even have a page for the app, and the actual Wikipedia page was very small as well. I did, however, find one singular article from CNET from 2007 discussing the 2.0.2 update, and that didn't fix much either since there was barely anything updated there. On the surface, iWeb probably didn't need any big changes from release besides quality of life and performance enhancements. Looking at this software almost 20 years after it was released, it honestly seems very redundant today. The average person typically will not be designing a whole website or blog for themselves and their friends. I don't know a single person with a blog spot, but almost everyone I know my age has an Instagram. Social media has essentially replaced the need or want for younger people to create websites for themselves. Setting up an Instagram is very quick and it's an easy process, and most people are going to take the easiest route. I'm not saying that having your own website is a waste. In fact, I believe much of the opposite. A website is a great place to host your project, ways to get in touch, general achievements, and of course your portfolio. While yes, social media can do all these things, doing it on your own website lets you do it in whatever way you see fit. On Instagram, for example, you'll be fitting in the same mold that a billion other people are. I have a feeling, however, that in the next few years, Instagram and other social media platforms will come to replace personal websites altogether, and they really already have. I don't know many people who have their own website, and the ones that do use it are for business-related things or to host their portfolio. I don't know a single person with a website today who's doing it just for fun, but this is just my view on the topic. I could be a big fish in a small pond. iWeb was part of a time when I feel that Apple wanted people to express themselves no matter how different they were, which I think is a great thing that they were doing. It would be amazing if Apple still had some type of software like this still available for the regular user. Also, there is practically zero demand for iWeb 2. Nobody's begging Apple for a sequel to iWeb. Most people probably don't even remember it, and the people my age, 20 and under, have no idea that this app even exists. Just to have some proof of this, which just happened about 20 minutes before I was recording, I was looking over my script and my little brother came in, and he's only 18, he's not that much younger than me, and he was like, "Hey, what's iWeb? Is that some type of internet browser?" And I was like, "No, actually, it's a whole entire website designer." He's like, "Oh, that's cool. No way, didn't know that." So yeah, people who are my age and younger have no idea what iWeb is. So that's the story of iWeb, almost 20 years later, and it's a forgotten piece of software. For about 5 years, Apple allowed its users to make their own websites. Since then, expressing yourself on the internet has changed tremendously with websites like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. If you used iWeb back in the day, let me know in the comments down below. I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and like and subscribe. If you want to support the channel financially, consider becoming a member for early access and behind-the-scenes content. I'd just like to say it again. I'd like to thank you guys very much for watching. Until next time, have fun.